Oh, yeah. So I'm on in a chief thing. How will you tell her? I'll tell her. Of higher education, but always she finds challenges like in English. It's always so we use sends me the script, I write it for her, or she tells me something. Everything she reads it for me because there are some words I do not read. I just get a little bit. Then now I will translate it as she yeah. I just go to English. But if she knew English, she would she owns like it's a student. She does this whatever so events and all that. Fine every weekend she because when they hire you for a day, that's a 200. Half day is 100. So she needs some money. Yeah. She needs some money. You find she will just spend some little. Very simple. How do you confirm? 26 years.
resumption of proceedings.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable members. We resume proceedings. But before we proceed, I just want to announce a few amendments I'm making on the order paper. Can I have them? Yes, I'm adding 2 items on the order paper. One is the EAC audited financial statements for the financial year ended 30th June 2018. It will be laying of a paper. And then there is another item which is the presentation of the East African Legislative Assembly Strategic Plan 2019-2024, which will be a motion. So we will handle those 2 items in addition to what we already had on the order paper. Honorable members, I now propose the motion that the report of the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges on the oversight activity on compliance of the EAC protocols and laws by the EAC institutions be adopted. Debate is open. Honorable Dr. Makame.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I recall I was on the floor, and thank you for returning me there. And actually, I was discussing on the issue of animal feeds, and I was proposing now that the chair might consider adding animal feeds. I can give a recommendation such that the council would consider to develop capacity of the East Africa to produce its own animal feed, that rather than importing animal feeds from abroad as far as Brazil. Mr. Speaker, on the other area, on page 4, when in the committee's methodology, it is mentioned that the committee divided itself into 2 teams. Actually, Mr. Speaker, I think that one should be something internally. And when the report is coming to the House, it is coming as a committee, much as it is coming. So they should try to, that one for the 2 teams, they should leave it, because everyone is part and parcel of this report in the committee. And there's another thing here I saw, is that in every institution the committee went, and because the chief executive officer of that institution was not there, then they met someone else, and then they mentioned the name of that person whom they met and the title, and they say the chief, like if I go to page 7, they say the committee visited in the University Council for East Africa in 10th October 2019 at its headquarters in Kampala. The committee was hosted by the management of IUCEA, led by Professor Mike Kuria, Deputy Executive Secretary, on behalf of the Executive Secretary, who was attending. So if they mention the name of the Deputy Executive Secretary, and then they say the Executive Secretary was not there, then it's better if they maintain consistency and also put the name of the officer who was not around. Mr. Speaker, on the same area in the Inter-University Council, they say the IUCEA is housed at their own building, and the land was provided by the government of Uganda, but they're planning now to have a construction phase 2 of the headquarters on their own land. Now, is this building going to be on a different land, rather than, and the phase 2 is just going to be on a different land? That's clarity which is missing in the report. So when the chair comes to sum up, maybe she can tell us about that more. The other area which I saw needed an input was the universities, and they say students used to come from the Tanganyika, Kenya, then the Rhodesia and Nyasaland in Central and Southern Africa. But I'm not sure if Rhodesia and Nyasaland are in Central Africa. I think that's all in Southern. So the Central there, I think it is misplaced. And Mr. Speaker, again, on page 8, the committee is saying that upon its re-establishment, the EAC recognized IUCA as one of the surviving institutions and concluded a protocol. So what I would seem to advise, maybe, if they can say, because it was existing through a MOU. So the MOU now was elevated to a
point
protocol.
Of clarification.
Now,
Yes, point of clarification from the chair.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I would like to request Honorable Dr. Makame to tell us the pages where he's reading so that we can take that into consideration in our response. Thank you.
Well, if that is easy for you, please do. But if you can't, again, it is about issues you referred to in the report. So you must be able to recollect what he is talking about. But if it is easy to make that specific reference, that's more helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Chair. I mentioned that was in page 8. The one for the Central Africa is page 8 on top, the opening paragraph. And this issue of concluding a protocol is on page 8 down, just after mentioning the issues of memorandum of understanding signed by the 3 partner states. Mr. Speaker, there's a proposal to amend the IUCA protocol. And it says that there are some issues in the protocol which are not consistent with the treaty. So, Mr. Speaker, again, that will also call the House to just see how did a protocol pass through the stages of negotiation, signing, and even ratification, and it is inconsistent with the treaty. That is something very serious, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are issues which would have been clarified, like on page 12, challenges facing IUCA. There's internal dynamics in partner states interfering with professional operations of the institution. Some interference has legal implications to the institution. Now, if that would have been expounded so that we become informed as well, because we would like really to know what is the problem. And the issue of non-recognition of IUCA diplomatic status, that is page F, point F in page 12. In other partner states, whereas IUCA activities are taxed by revenue authorities in other partner states. Now, this one, again, my colleague who is not here, Honorable Kadir, spoke about it with regards to EADB. Now, here we are seeing IUCA. And accordingly, IUCA, as an organ of the community, as an institution of the community, should enjoy same privileges as any other organ and institution of the community. Now, why is the IUCA being taxed? Maybe the members of the council can come and respond to this, or if maybe the Secretary General of CTC. And Mr. Speaker, it is being spoken that the summit gave directive in its communique that EAC becomes a common higher education area, and which is not anchored in law. But I would like to remind, to call memories of this House, that in the Common Market Protocol, we had agreed to have mutual recognition of academic and professional qualifications, which are also being coordinated under the Ministries of Higher Education, and IUCA is part and parcel of that. So maybe if we can try to see how these things can be working together. But, and maybe the council, if they deem it necessary, then they should bring a law for the common education area. And Mr. Speaker, with regards to the page 14, on East African Community Civil Aviation Safety and Security Agency, CASOA. And there it says, CASOA is housed at a building provided by the government of Uganda and it is currently processing acquisition of the title deed. Now, is it to acquire title deed for that particular building that has been granted to it by the Republic of Uganda, or for another property? That's something which we just would like to know. And with the KASOA also, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of funding of KASOA. We saw they're saying that the funds are not consistent. Sometimes they're on the rise, and other times they're on the decline. Now, the report does not say whether KASOA does not follow the same way the other institutions are funded, so it is self-financing. So we'd really like to know about the funding of KASOA. And also in the challenges area 5.26, F, it says one of the challenges is funding from development partners. But what about it? Are there funding coming from the development partners? Or there are no funds coming? Or they are declining? Or there are some conditions which are not acceptable? Because that is not very clear. On the other area, Mr. Speaker, on page 18, observations of the committee, and it says for item 4, air transport is still expensive as compared with other regions in the world. Now, what about that? Is that because of existence of KASOA, or is that, or how can KASOA do, what should KASOA do to make the cost of air transportation transport to fall down or to decline? Elsewhere, Mr. Speaker, is on page 23, visit to the source of the Nile fish farm. On first paragraph, last line, it said the SON fish farm is owned by a British, which has similar farms in Zimbabwe and Zambia. So is it that one owner, the British, a single owner? And and if that is the case, then which is fine. But if it's many owners, then it should be who? I think that was where I was looking. And on challenges of LVFO, we saw the Republic of Uganda funding KASOA with Ugandan shillings and not United States dollars as stipulated in the EAC protocol. That is on page 24. So we'd really like to hear a response from the Council on how they are going to look at this. But also, it is reported that KASOA is not receiving funds from partner states as they are supposed to be receiving, because the contribution, annual contribution, some of the partner states are 2 years lagging behind. And this is really frustrating to operations of the institution. Elsewhere on page 24, Mr. Speaker, on challenges, the issue of saving the Nile patch operation. It is said that there were funds which were earmarked from development partners, but during the budgetary process, those funds were declined. So KASOA is somehow lamenting that, LVFO is lamenting that these funds were there, but the ones who are supposed to approve the budget declined the funds. So it's something which we really need to probe and see. Why was that the case? If there are justifications for that, that's fine. But if they are not, then why should we make our institution suffocate? And when it comes to EADB, Mr. Speaker, I really wanted to speak much about EADB, but I think, Mr. Speaker, you gave good guidance, and the Council saw it. But what I'd really like to recall is on this very House, when he was the chair of the Council, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, who is the Minister responsible for EAC, Honorable Alhaj Dr. Kirunda Kivajinja, mentioned something very detailed about EADB. Maybe we should retrieve the Hansard to go and see what was pronounced. And from there, we take it forward. Because I'm not sure what is happening with this bank. So, Mr. Speaker, elsewhere, I'd like to recommend to the chair, because in the report, the chair submitted that there is visibility missing for the operations of these institutions. So the issue of visibility should also be captured in the general recommendations, and the issue of fish feeds, which I will craft and submit to the chair. And also, the chair spoke about staffing, and the institutional review does not do justice to staffing of these institutions, and for that reason, request the Council of Ministers in the general recommendations that they should also check about staffing of these institutions. Mr. Speaker, I'd once again say that I'm supporting the motion to pass this report with these amendments. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. If we can remind each other, had we appointed the list? We had. Not yet.
There was a list of it.
There was, yes. And on the list, the next is Honorable Leontine, then it will be Honorable Ito, Honorable Happiness. I remember I had the list, but I'll come to the list afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to this debate. First of all, I would like to commend the chairperson of the Committee of Legal. She really made a very good presentation, and I would like to commend the committee as a whole for the work well done. Right Honorable Speaker, this is a very good report, very well written in a very simple English. Anyone who can read it can get it. For those who are not, whose English is their third language, they really get it very well. I then commend the work done by this committee by visiting these institutions. This is the work we should be doing, actually, instead of inviting those, instead of inviting the executives of the institution to visit us, we should be visiting them. When we visit them, we see the realities on the ground. Right Honorable Speaker, it is really unfortunate that the Inter-University Council has no accreditation and inspection powers to oblige all other universities to be inspected by it. I think the Council should make it an obligation compulsory to all universities in our countries to be subjected to inspection, because some of these universities in our countries, they are just money-oriented, business-oriented. They are not doing what they are supposed to do. That's why maybe they avoid being inspected by the Inter-University Council. And this is the area where we need to make a lot of effort, because if we miss in education, we'll be missing the rest of on our development. I would like as well to urge the Council to respond, to give their comment to CASOA and Inter-University Council, because they submitted their proposal regarding the amendment of protocols and acts, but partner states have not replied, have not said anything, and this make they stuck in doing their work. So I would like to urge the Council to make an effort to reply, to give responses to these institutions, so that they can do their work accordingly. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. By this few remarks, I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Leontine. The microphone. Honorable Dr. Ann.
Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to the debate. I would like to thank and commend the chair of Legal Rules and Privileges Committee for presenting an excellent report, which is very representative of what we saw on the ground. And I would also want to confess that I'm a member of that committee. Right Honorable Speaker, though the oversight exercised by the committee was limited to institutions located in the Republic of Uganda, personally I was able to notice some patterns in the way EAC has been treating these institutions. There are some observations where you see the activities limited to just a very specific institution. And there are some very general. Some are good and some are bad. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to pick the Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization as a practice by the EAC that has been really good, in the sense that if you go to page 19 of the report, you will see that Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization dates back to 1928, and then it lived to survive the collapse of the EAC and has metamorphosed during the new EAC that we have today to accommodate the objectives as well as the changes of the needs of the people of East Africa. You'll see that in 2016, the mandate has been expanded to include new members, which means it's adjusting to the size of the East African community. At the same time also, the mandate has been expanded in order to be able to respond to the provisions of the Customs Union Protocol and the Common Market Protocol. As a result, you see it being reconstituted to have new departments and new sectors to address. And Honorable Speaker, this institution has been expanded to work with productivity, which is more or less productivity and quality and marketing, which is very specific and unique to the area of customs union and common market, which I think is a very good practice. As East African community grows, so must its institutions. And that way, it becomes very relevant and will be able to respond to new changes. Honorable Speaker, my biggest disappointment is, which I think the Council of Ministers should note, despite the changing mandate, despite the good work of Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization, which I think there may be other institutions doing as well, there has not been a similar response in terms of funding. As a result, you find that this institution is unable even to hire staff for two very important departments that have been added in order to be able to respond to the needs of East Africa. And I think that is very unfortunate. We should take that as a lesson because it's really changing, and we should find monies for it. And you see that only 38% of the budget of this institution is being met. even though it continues to get funding from international partners, but that is not enough. So I think these are lessons learned that we should really take seriously, particularly if institutions are doing well and they are responding, we should respond equally as EAC to make it possible so that it can serve the people of East Africa. I've also seen if we didn't visit, we would actually not know. A lot of these institutions are reaching out to other institutions. They are networking. They're even networking with the ordinary farmers and fishermen and fisherwomen as well. So, it's very, very important that we don't remain static if we really want the process of integration to take roots and also for its benefits to grow. Other areas where it is more or less common is the lack of powers of these institutions to enforce various instruments and standards that have been developed. Lake Victoria's Fisheries Institution has a lot of instruments, and I think equally ISEA, Inter-University Council of East Africa, has also developed some standards for universities or the areas of education. But what you notice is, whether it is because of lack of money or funds to implement it, or whether it's lack of partner states to comply, you find that all this good work only remain with the institutions. I know that South Sudan has not paid its membership, and I'm sure it will. But you see that Lake Victoria Fisheries, when we went there, they have a lot of very good guidelines, standards of drying fish and so on. And yet, within East Africa, there are a lot of people involved in fish production that does not enjoy or benefit from the standards that have been given. So really, I think we need to look at that so that we effectively utilize the institutions that have been created to provide specialized skills. The other area where I also want to agree with our recommendation is the lack of visibility. Until we went there, I had no idea that there is something called fish cages. You see them floating on Lake Victoria. And I'm told this can be adapted to work anywhere in different parts of East Africa. They have good things, but they are unable to share it. And if you don't go there, you even don't become aware that something good is happening. So really, there is need for these institutions to be able to share these good practices, these good guidelines, these good standards, so that they are able to meet their mandate. Honorable Speaker, I'm emphasizing this observation, and I want to link it to the motion by Dr. Makame about doing reviews and assessments. I one time was working very closely by a literature person called Taban Loliong, and this guy, I hope is not blasphemous, he told me that it's only God who created the world in 7 days and never came back to check. But as human beings, we must always check our creations. And I think the same would apply to the East African community, because there are some good lessons learned, but there are some also glaring problems that we have neglected for a long time. Some of these problems have been reported for over 4 or 5 years, and we have not taken action. And I think time has come for us particularly the Council of Ministers, to take this as a wake-up call and pay more attention to these institutions, correct it when it's necessary, but amplify those good lessons where it's necessary. Right, Honorable Speaker, I support the report, and my prayer is the recommendations will be taken seriously and moved forward in order to move the East African community forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ann, Honorable Dr. Ann. Honorable Happiness, next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this report. Also, I would like to declare that I'm the member of this committee, and also I participated in the oversight activities at Kasoa. Mr. Speaker, according to my observation, Kasoa is understaffed, and one of the reasons is that the institution is underfunded. As we all know, the impact of being understaffed, especially if it is for prolonged period, creates significant problems such as being overworked. The extra workload might result in working longer hours, and it increases the chance of burnout. Stressful condition. Heightened stress levels can cause disinsertion within the organization and decreases the productivity, and the ability to meet goals decreases. Mr. Speaker, not only Kasoa has this problem of being understaffed, but also the other organs and institutions of the community, including Eala. I urge the Council of Ministers to address the problem of funding and staff facing Kasoa, as well as other organs and institutions of EAC which face the same problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Happiness. Now I pick the last order on this particular item. Right? Honorable Musamali, Honorable Musamali, Honorable Marie-Claire, Honorable Mariam, Dr. Magembe, Honorable Dr. Karinda, Honorable Jean-Claude. Let us be brief, so that we can fix.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll try my best. I support the report. I also want to declare that I'm a member of the Legal Committee, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker. I have some of my points have been spoken out, so I don't have to repeat them. I want us to go to page number 14. It's about Kasoa's house. That is the item 5.2. And we can go straight away to the last paragraph. Is that a paragraph? No, last sentence. It says, the Kasoa is housed at a building provided by the government of Uganda, and it is currently processing acquisition of the title. Honorable Speaker, we found this as a very serious problem, and we had the, I don't know whether it was an omission on the recommendations on page 18 by the committee, where I belong. Either it was an omission or typo. We found out that it is a serious problem. Government of Uganda offered the community the land and the house where Kasoa is now headquartered. However, there has been a problem in terms of processing the land title, such that the property is wholly owned by the community. I would therefore want us to include in the recommendations on page 18, maybe to be Roman number 7 on the recommendations, that we urge the government of the Republic of Uganda to fast track the issuance of the land title for Kasoa headquarters, such that we are secure. With now land grabbing all over East Africa, we don't want to risk our property.
Or the change of mind.
Or even the change of mind. Yes, right, Honorable Speaker. And then the other one, which is the last one, is about the differences in privileges, right, Honorable Speaker. Article 138, 1 and 3 of the treaty. It's about status, privileges, and immunities. Can I read this in a second? Sub-Article 1 says, the community shall enjoy international legal personality. But let me go straight to 3, that each of the partner states undertakes to accord to the community and its officers the privileges and immunities accorded to similar international organizations in its territory. We have a very big problem, right, Honorable Speaker, we have observed while we are overseeing these institutions, and we have discovered that countries are treating the staff of the organs and institutions of the community differently from what is provided for in the treaty. So I want to take this opportunity to urge strongly the Council to take this matter seriously, such that we do not have those differences among the staff of the community. Some, you can imagine, for example, the Executive Secretary of Lake Victoria Basin Commission. He happens to be, as you are aware, it is based in Kenya, and this officer happens to be from Kenya. He's just treated like any ordinary Kenyan. And indeed, he's supposed to be given that diplomatic privilege. So that's just one of the examples. And this is a very serious and senior officer, likewise. And I'm sure that in the Act for Privileges, and it limits who are at which level, such that all these officers are treated with the dignity and the privileges they deserve. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, and I beg you to support.
Thank you, Honourable Musamari. You know, certain areas require that we emphasize. I am expecting the CTC to make a comment on this, because if this is a provision of the treaty, it is a law in every East African partner state. So if you deny the official who is entitled to a diplomatic status under this treaty, you are in breach of the treaty provision. And this is not something that requires a certain process. As long as the person is properly appointed by the community to serve in a certain capacity in a partner state that is party to this treaty, then the diplomatic status must be accorded immediately. So for these areas where a problem has been identified, we will ask the CTC, first of all, to tell whether he agrees with us that actually this undertaking is a law. It's a part of domestic law in every partner state, and that any conduct to the contrary is a breach of the treaty. If that is a correct interpretation, then maybe that is where your role can end, but the Council can tell us then, why is it that this provision is not being observed in partner states? It may be now or after, when at some point before we conclude this item. Honorable Marikre.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I would like to congratulate the Madam Chair of Legal for this report. And first of all, I would stand to say that being a member of the committee who participated in the oversight activity, we are all aware of the work well done by these institutions and the progress that they are making for our community. Mr. Speaker, I have a concern that is not minor, because it is an issue of equity and equality. Mr. Speaker, I want to attract the attention of this Assembly that all partner states are not totally involved in programs initiated and implemented by these institutions. Mr. Speaker, when we were informed that South Sudan and Rwanda are not involved in programs of Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization, Mr. Speaker, we have been informed also that among 130 universities which are members of Inter-University Council for East African, the majority of them belong to Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. Few of them belong to Burundi and South Sudan. I am still wondering why this disparity when one of the objectives of inter-university is a common higher education area. I was not convinced to hear that this institution has no power to inspect universities or programs when the Act and Protocol says that inter-university should oblige universities to offer quality education. Mr. Speaker, when we're talking about integration, when we're expecting to have an economic growth of the region, when our slogan is one people, one destiny, we want all our young people to be educated in the same way. We want all our young people to take advantage of the opportunities offered by Inter-University Council, and we want them to be educated in the same manner. We want them to enjoy the benefits of the institution, such as scholarship, the same accessibility in Center of Excellence, etc. So I urge the Council of Ministers to be real involved in this issue of education in all the region and ensure that all East Africans are benefiting of the welfare of the community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Thank you very much, Honorable Marie-Claire. Your microphone is still on. Thank you. Honorable Mariam is next.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members, let me first declare that I'm a member of Legal Committee and I participated on this program. Therefore, I will not contribute much. I just have one point which I want to reiterate, especially a pledge from CASOA. First of all, even though they are not here, I would like to congratulate CASOA for the work well done they are doing. It was my first time visiting CASOA in Kampala. What I want to put forward to the Council of Ministers is coming from page 17 on the challenges that are facing by CASOA on a point D, which is tedious and ultimately process for harmonization of Civil Aviation Act, Civil Aviation Regulation and Procedures. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members, currently CASOA is still following Aviation Act separately. Each partner state is regulated by its own aviation law and regulations, and they are really urging for us, together with the Council, to push forward a regional aviation act. And they put forward this to us, and we took it for them on their behalf and bring it to the Council. And therefore, I'm standing here to pledge with the Council to make sure that they put into consideration the regional aviation law or act, which will be much easier for them to bring it here to the House, as this law is really touching on the aspect of aviation security. So it will be good for the Council of Ministers to bring us, considering Council also are responsible to bring us act in the House, and we have not received any act from them recently. So I'm pledging with them on this because we received this as a pledge from Kasoa, and that's why we're bringing it to them. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I support the report.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mariam. Honorable Magembe is next. Honorable Dr. Magembe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will heed your instructions on trying to be short. But while I do that, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate my senior brother, Pierre Celestine, Doctor, on joining the fraternity of PhD holders. There are very few of us in this house and in the world. And, you know, immediately
Which
you're
makes
blessed.
you the minority in the house.
Yes. But because of the PhD, we're blessed with intelligence, handsomeness, all these things. So, congratulations.
Clarification.
Honorable Maria.
Right Honorable Speaker, does Honorable Member inspire that for us who have no PhD are less intelligent?
No, he was emphasizing the point that they are handsome. Now, whether that is correct or not, that's it. Okay, Dr. Magembe, we are proud of you. The rest of us who are not, we are really proud of you.
Thank you, thank you.
And
thank
we are
you.
inspired.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When I was just on a light note, Honorable Mariam, don't take offense. So I was congratulating my senior brother. It's a big achievement. It's a big achievement to do it, especially with all the obligations that you have already as a member of parliament and so forth. When I did mine, I had nothing else to do. I was on scholarship and it almost took my life. So the fact that you did it while you were working is a big achievement. Hongera. Okay. On to the report. I'd like to congratulate the chair on a very good report. The report read very well. And it was a good report. As my younger honorable brother Kennedy said, you know, it was diplomatic, but I prefer diplomatic reports. I'm going to leave that there. As the chair of the Accounts Committee, I see we do a lot of oversight on these same institutions. And I'd like to concur with Honorable Order that we see the same recommendations and the same problems, and they keep reoccurring and they keep reoccurring. And a lot of it has to do with funding. A lot of it has to do with funding, and we have to understand also that the Council of Ministers have their hands tied sometimes with the funds that are available to them. And they also don't enjoy having a zero increment in budget, but I would like to urge them that maybe it might be time now to go from 8 million to 12. But that is, it's time now because we keep adding new institutions, we have very ambitious programs. It might be time for us to rethink our contributions or rethink how we are going to fund the community. It's an unpleasant topic, but I think it's something that we need to discuss. Right. I would also like to concur with the chair of Legal in congratulating Kasoa and LVFO on a job well done. Kasoa is one of those institutions that in the Accounts Committee we always tell the other organs, why can't you be like Kasoa? Why can't you be like Kasoa? Because they do a good job, they're very diligent. And LVFO as well. The one issue that I would like to discuss in this report is the issue of staffing, because we have just recently been doing some oversight activities in the Accounts Committee, and this may preempt our report a little bit, but because the Council is in the process of, they've received the report from the Ad Hoc Service Commission and they're in the process of implementing it, I thought it may be, it would be a good place maybe to discuss it in short or in brief. All the organs that come before us in the committee are all crying about understaffing, and they also don't feel that the draft structure that has been presented by the Ad Hoc Services Commission fulfills their needs. And they are also complaining that a lot of their views were not taken into account. This is something, of course, that when we present our report, I think in the next plenary we will delve into in deep. But the one recommendation that I would like to give the members of council, in complete good faith, is that when you're appointing the staff members, try and place a lot more emphasis on technical staff. It doesn't, let me give you an example. I think it was Esteco. The lady was complaining that she doesn't have anyone in her research department. Her as the executive director, executive secretary, she does all the research. The council is giving her staff, but they're giving her support staff, they're giving her accountants, but she doesn't have anyone in the research directorate, which is a core function of her institution. So the one piece of advice that I would like to give you is, while you're going through this process of hiring, try and look to see how, as much as possible, you can appoint technical staff to these positions in the community and its organs. With that being said, Honorable Speaker, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that other members can embark on their PhDs, so by the time we're done here, we're all Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magembe. Honorable Dr. Karinda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm also a member of the Committee on Rules, Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges. And in that capacity, I just want to make some clarifications on the questions asked by Honorable Victor Burikuchie. The question is on page 12 of the report. It arises from an observation of the committee. The observation says that there are very few beneficiaries from the Republic of Burundi and the Republic of South Sudan as compared to other partner states. When we heard this case, this issue, we were also concerned, and the committee asked the same question to the Inter-University Council of East Africa, and the answer we got is that scholarships are awarded on merit. Host universities, that is the universities that provide scholarships, they also give tests to student candidates, and after the test, they select the students who score the highest marks. We recommended to the Inter-University Council of East Africa to go on the ground and to meet different universities, mostly these universities from these countries where students are not selected as they are in other partner states, so that they can provide them with adequate information so that when they apply for scholarship, they are very well informed, and they also try to get on the same level of others. Briefly, that is how the imbalance occurs. And Honorable Victor Burikuchie has also a concern that this observation is not followed by a recommendation. But, Mr. Speaker, if you look at page 13 recommendation 6, Roman 6, it is included because it says to direct the IUCA to ensure that its activities benefit all partner states. It is not spelled in a way they mention a particular partner state, but it concerns all partner states.
Information?
Yeah,
Honorable Mukuria, are you taking information? Dr.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Kalinda, for giving me the opportunity to give an information. In fact, I would like to inform the House that in the short notice that South Sudan is a member of the community, we now have 13 students who are benefiting from the scholarships that are accorded by UCA. And this is a very great thing that it's a short time of 2 years, and if we can have that, it means we are also competitive in the world, in the region. So it's a very good initiative, and I want to say that we are not underrepresented, as I can say. That's a very good representation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a very important information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was about to wind up. I just support the report to which I have appended my signature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Karinda. Finally, Honorable Claude. Oh, so now the number is increasing. We have to wind up this one. Okay. Honorable Kim, you will be the last. And try to be brief, and you also.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I have only 2 concerns. I want to make comments on 2 issues. First of all is on the contributions on social security funds, which is done in the IUCA, where the staff are required, or IUCA is required to contribute for their staffs in the National Social Security Fund. The committee has also formulated a recommendation with that regard, but they have only requested the government of Uganda to intervene and resolve this matter. But I remember this issue also came in the Audit Commission report, where the Commission was concerned about the EAC staff, also including members of Parliament, East African Legislative Parliament, whereby during our time here, we don't have a way of contributing to our social security fund so that when we retire, we can also get something. I think this issue cannot be only resolved for this staff of IUCA and be resolved only by the government of Uganda. I think it is a concern of the security, not of the community at large. And I appeal to the Council of Ministers also to engage in this matter so that even those staff, in particular of IUCA, can be able, especially for staff originating from other partner states, if they are contributing to the Uganda National Security Fund, is there any regulation which will allow them to transfer their contribution to their countries when they will conclude their terms? So those are the things they can look at with the help of the Council of Ministers. I think this issue can be a concern of the whole community. So the second comment I want to make is about the observation made by the committee, where they say that there is an issue that the realization of DSC Common Higher Education area requires support ESC legal instruments. At least on this matter, I have I've got some information. The Inter-University Council for East Africa has adopted a policy, higher education policy in 2014, which allows in its provisions all East African students to be given equal treatment in all universities of East African community. But it is still occurs that some students coming from other partner states, different partner states in East African community, when they go to study in other universities, they are charged higher tuition fees. And they are also, even when they get diploma or their degrees, they are not accepted. They need to search to look for equivalence. And it takes a long time. I think during the process that we need also to prepare this bill as this was proposed by the committee, which can resolve this issue. But we partner states also need to adhere or respect what they have agreed in the Common Market Protocol, but also what is included in that policy adopted by the IUCR. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I submit and I support the report.
Thank you so much, Honorable Claude. Finally, Honorable Kim Guy.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will be very brief. Honorable Speaker, I am members of the Committee of the Legal, Rule and Privilege. My observation is very simple, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, during the regional committee about the oversight about the refugees, I made here in the House that they go to Uganda and they did not go to the Republic of Kenya. And also yesterday we discussed the GP report also. And today also we have discussed the legal oversight activities. And this report, Honorable Speaker, should be very comprehensive. And I hope in next time when the committees have oversight activities should go to all partner states and make the comprehensive report. Because here I see some of the institutions also did not be a part of this report, and we are recommend to the council. So when we are made some report and recommend to the council should be comprehensive, because I don't know if it is issue of the funds. I think the committees should do oversight in the partner state. So we need the report should be comprehensive so the council can act. Instead, again, we do other oversight in the other institution or other any activities. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kim Guy. Now, may I invite the CTC and the council?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The question related to the application of Article 138 of the treaty and whether it is law. Right Honorable Speaker, you clarified clearly that it is law. Indeed, pursuant to Article 8 of the treaty, partner states have undertaken to accord the treaty force of law in the territories. Now, the challenge is this. When you look at Article 138.2, there is a provision for concluding headquarters agreements between the Secretary General and the respective governments. Because the institutions have been created or established at different times, the headquarters agreements that have been concluded tend to differ. The CASOA was not established at the same time with LVBC. LVBC was not established at the same time with the Inter-University Council. So you have variances in the headquarters agreements. Of course, Article 138.2 does not prohibit amendments to the headquarters agreements. I think one of the channels that will be pursued is for the Secretary General to propose amendments to the headquarters agreement so that the terms are the same across the board. But from a policy level, the Council has already adopted a protocol on immunities and privileges.
Point of order.
Honorable CTC, switch off the microphone first.
My point of order, Honorable Speaker. Did the CTC, what do you call him, CCT look at Article 73 of the treaty, whereas it talks of all the staffs, not the treaty signed and then the immunity comes with institutions. The immunity is within the treaty, and is it in order to mislead the House?
Yes, Honorable CTC.
Right Honorable Speaker, what I was trying to really put across is this. that the council as a policy organ is aware that there are some variances in the headquarters agreement, and to address that matter, they have concluded a protocol on immunities and privileges for EAC organs and institutions. The only challenge is that the ratification process has been slow. But once that protocol is ratified and comes into force, all the issues that are crystallizing in this report will be addressed, because that is precisely why there was a need for a protocol on immunities and privileges. The protocol is going to implement whatever is covered in the treaty, touching on immunities and privileges. I thank you.
Well, I find it a bit problematic also because, first of all, I don't know why it should be a lengthy process to negotiate a headquarters agreement. Because I think that's part of the process towards a decision to establish a certain institution in a particular partner state. What among the requirements that the partner state should provide to show their readiness to host the headquarters of an institution is actually to prove that they are already in agreement with the headquarters. You know, we need to know that these things really inconvenience people who work for these institutions very, very much, to the extent that we may not be able to appreciate. I give you a simple example. I think you know that I've been involved in the process of reforming the Football Confederation of Africa. You know, it has been in that country where it is for many, many years. But the headquarters agreement had never been concluded. And as a result, the employees would have to exit after every 3 months to come back as new entrants. So until we started this process, now it's going to be signed, I think, next week. But it was such a huge inconvenience. So we need to realize that these people who work for these institutions are trapped into this bureaucracy for no good reason. Now I want to request the CTC to come with an inventory to this house. Which institutions are still trapped into issues of headquarters agreement, so that we can know them and take appropriate action as an assembly. If it is on the part of the partner state that is not willing to host a certain institution, then we need to know. If there are conditions that they are not willing to satisfy, we also need to know. It shouldn't be a problem to, give them what is due for them under the treaty. So instead of dealing with this matter piecemeal, now in my capacity, I will redirect the CTC as a member of this house to bring the inventory of the status of conclusion of headquarters agreement of every institution in all partner states where they are, and be able to do so in the next plenary. Yeah. Chair, yes.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. The Council welcomes the report from the Committee on Protocols and the Laws by the East African Community Institutions. We have taken note of the recommendations, and the Council is going to work on implementation of the same. Right Honorable Speaker, the Council also wishes to clarify that in accordance with Article 9, Sub-Article 3 of the treaty, the EADB is recognized as one of the institutions of the community, though in terms of shareholdings, only 4 out of 6 of the partner states have shares. But the Council gave directives to the Secretariat to engage with the Minister of Finances and the Attorney Generals in order to harmonize matters which are still not concluded between the EADB and the community. The Secretariat did its job by convening the financial and technical working team to discuss the same, which was supposed to submit its report this November. And we believe the next Sectoral Council on Finance will meet and discuss on the report. On the funding of CASOA, CASOA is funded by the civil aviation authorities of the partner states, but in terms of compliance in auditing, it is audited by Audit Commission, and all policy matters are governed through the Council. Honorable Speaker, the Council also is going to follow up on the issue of all protocols related to CASOA and Inter-University Council of East Africa, so as to make sure that they are completed timely and they serve the community effectively. Right, Honorable Speaker, we are aware, and the Council is aware, on the challenging of funding within the community, and we are reliant and heavily expecting the outcome of the alternative sustainable funding study, once concluded, will address the critical challenge which we are facing now. Right, Honorable Speaker, the question of variance of the headquarters agreement, if I'm correct, we have about 7 now, the headquarters agreement, but they differ from one from the other. There was a protocol which was passed and signed. This is a protocol on immunity and the privileges of diplomatic staff within the East Africa. We have taken note of a directive through the CTC, and what is needed is for all partner states now to ratify this protocol. Once it is ratified, the protocol is going to harmonize the terms and the conditions for all the headquarters agreement, particularly in terms of privileges and immunities of staffs and the institutions or organs in particular. Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Well, there could be some legal niceties that I overlooked in the directive. It could be the CTC or the Secretary General or the Council, but what we need in the House is that inventory. Now, what is the appropriate organ to bring it? I know whoever is involved, the CTC will be instrumental in arranging that and making sure that it happens. Now, I invite the chair of the committee to sum up the debate.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me start by thanking all honorable members for their contributions and recommendations, which I think are going to enrich our report. Questions are so many, but many of them are interrelated. So I might not answer each and every question. I'll try to group some of the questions and make general comments, but probably I'll come back to specific questions. There was an issue on implementation of the recommendations, that all recommendations are almost related in various reports of the Assembly, but implementation is still wanting, and I think this is the responsibility of the Council. So we hope the Council will take note of this. And when you look at our recommendations, really in this report, they are very specific and they are very easy to implement. And these are also based on the needs from the institutions where we visited. So I hope the Council should be able to implement these recommendations. And I think some time back, the Assembly also advised the Council to be presenting quarterly reports So I think this could be one area that could be addressed by the council. Then there was an issue on the protocols. The council representative of the council chair has already raised this issue. There was frustration, and the fact that most of the protocols and the relevant legal instruments of the institutions were not amended was challenging, but the council has decided to look into this issue as soon as possible. Same applies on the issue of privileges. It was a cross-cutting issue, and I'm happy that the Speaker has also guided CTC to work on it. I hope there will be a time frame so that it's not many months from now, because it is a challenge, and it is also an issue of equity in terms of treatment. The issue of funding, again, the council chair has responded to that. The issue of staffing is also a cross-cutting challenge, because we cannot create institutions and fail to really to provide the basic staff. So I think this is an issue that the council have to address as soon as possible. Even the few staff that have agreed upon in the institutional review and in the structures of the institutions, I think you heard of the experience of Lake Victoria Fisheries, where a whole department doesn't have staff, and these are specialized staff. So I think this is an issue that the council should also address. There was an issue on collaboration between the institutions of the community and relevant sectoral ministries. We found it especially with regard to Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization. I think it's an issue of egos, because we are told that although, according to the treaty, we communicate to the partner states through ministries of EACs, but we are told, of course, they were uncomfortable, but it was an issue, that sometimes if they don't report directly to the sectoral ministries, they are told that they are not going to implement. That if we receive a communication from another minister, I'm not going to implement or to give you what you deserve. So it was challenging for these institutions, because bureaucracies have to be respected. And then the other issue is that some of the day-to-day challenges they face are related to sectoral ministries. So the fact that reporting doesn't go direct becomes a challenge. But we advised through our recommendations that the Assembly urges the Council to address this issue and, if possible, put in place guidelines on collaboration so that there is no bureaucracy in terms of communication and coordination. Honorable Makame, Honorable Abdikadir made a comment on the EADB Bank, and I'm happy that there was a good discussion, and also Honorable Speaker also guided. Although the Council has responded, we really feel that there is no clarity up to now. It is still a challenge, and we hope this has to be clarified, because I don't want to go into the gymnastics we had to go through, but if they feel difficult, if it becomes difficult to receive even the Assembly, if it is difficult for the Assembly to get information from the bank, and you have to try so many ways, writing, I don't know whether the Council is also receiving collaboration. But we are also aware that the 4 partner states that are shareholders of this bank happen also to be member states of the community. It's our ministers of finance who are the board of directors. So I think, as a matter of urgency, as the Speaker guided, there should be a clarity to know whether this bank belongs to the community or whether it is an independent bank, what is the relationship, what does the community benefit from the existence of this bank, whether Article 9 of the treaty is clearly operationalized. So I hope the Council of Ministers should be able to clarify this, the issue of audit. So I don't want to go back into details.
I'm sorry, Chair. When I was intervening on this, I reminded you, honorable members, that the Audit Commission has always raised the issue, and I don't know why I wish the Chair, General Purpose, was here, or the accounts. But some of you members are here. I think they have always raised the issue of why they cannot audit this bank. So this one we need to resolve now. I think that one cannot wait. Can we audit it or can't we audit it? And if we cannot audit it, why is it that we cannot have a situation where this query is permanently dropped? So it doesn't have to come from time to time. If it is not our institution, let us know. If it is ours, then it must be audited by our auditing system. I think we need a clarification from the Council, at least particularly about the issue of whether this particular bank can be audited by the Audit Commission. Because members of the Accounts Committee, you know that. Isn't this query always there? Yes. So we just need to know, so that even when we are budgeting for the Audit Commission, we know that we can budget for them with one institution less.
Point of information.
Yes, Honorable. No.
Honorable Speaker, I think this issue has been coming year after year, and we are told one time by the Council that this was directed from the summit to the Council or the Secretariat to go and look into this matter and finalize once and for all. And there's no progress being made. If there are any shareholders, private shareholders, there are member states who have no shares. They can buy out those shares and become an entity of the community in particular. Or we can sell our shares to the private and this bank become private. But the progress being made, because we cannot be, I said we are not going to be a talking shop in this house, and the progress being made is not being reported to the House. And the House always give views in terms of resolutions or in terms of bills, but nothing is coming back telling us that at least, yes, we are moving, and this is a directive that we intend to take. It may take this time, it may take this period. So can we be really told, as you have said, where are we in this matter? Because other institutions are waiting for this assembly to make laws so that they can be able to audit within that framework of the existing legal framework. So can we be told really what is the status of that bank?
Yes, and what was the basis of listing it as a surviving institution of the community when some people have the view that it does not belong to the community? I mean, it's a...
Point of clarification.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I just wish to clarify some few issues on this. The EADB is one of the surviving institutions of the community. And the complication which we are having now is a price which we are trying to pay for the collapse of the 1977 community. There are two issues there. One is ownership of the institution, of the bank, but two, its management aspect. The ownership after the collapse went beyond the founder members. Even now, the ownership structure of the bank is beyond the community partner states. And the reason for this, as I've said, because the community collapsed. and the bank had to go on with the business. That's why it established a charter which opened up for other countries and institutions which do not in any way belongs to the community. But the concern has been noted that this structure, the way it is now, where some of the partner states are not shareholders, is problematic. How to disentangle with it? There are progress which are made. One, the council gave directive to the secretariat to summon the ministers of finance and the attorney generals. The secretariat did it. Once the minister of finance and the attorney generals met, they established a technical working team. A technical working team has finished its report November 2019. The report is ready. What we are waiting for is for the 11th Sectoral Council of Finance to meet. It was supposed to meet this November, but it couldn't. Once they heard that the summit is postponed, therefore is meeting in February. That report is going to be tabled to the Sectoral Council, and thereafter to the Council, and then it will be shared here in the Assembly. The clarification here is that there are progress made, not that there's nothing which has been done. Right Honourable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Well, that's a promising clarification, and it is as good as making a commitment that the Council will come with a progress report in the next plenary, where I think the Sectoral Council will have met. And if there is going to be a reason for the Sectoral Council not to meet, we shall know. But if the Sectoral Council will meet before we convene again, then honourable members of the Council should be sure that we shall come up with this question again and demand to have progress report about this. Yes. Yes, Honourable Kennedy.
I just went to the website of the East African Development Bank. I would like to ask the Honourable Minister if he can clarify to me why is the East African Development Bank listed as Standard Chartered Bank as its parent organization?
Maybe, yes.
Yeah, that's my clarification.
The microphone is on. Well, maybe that is another detail that we shall have clarified when the report comes, because certainly there are so many. Is the microphone on? Is it on? There is certainly so many questions that can be asked, and maybe we should not open that Pandora's box for now. Let it be part of the clarifications that will be made when the process that the minister has described gets complete. Thank you so much. Honourable Fatuma, try to sum up in the quickest way possible.
Okay, thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable Makame, I think you proposed many amendments to the report, some are editorial. We take note of them, and then I also saw your amendments. There was also a recommendation you proposed to have a recommendation on animal feeds. We shall take that. On the methodology, I think we thought it was important to explain to the Assembly how we conducted an oversight, and I don't see any problem on that. The rest, on your proposals, I think we take care of them, and some of the questions that you raised on the protocols, inconsistencies, the Council and the CTC have already addressed these issues. And also the issue of the title deed, Honourable Musamali handled it very well. The issue of powers and privileges was also addressed by CTC. The issue of visibility I think it's in our recommendation. We realize that most of the institutions do not have communication strategies, so we recommended that they should have communication strategies, but also try to ensure that their work is visible. So I think most of other questions have been addressed by the council. Indeed, most of them were addressed to the council. And if there is any omission to the question that you might have raised, I think we shall take them into consideration as we fine-tune the report. So the rest, I take them as recommendations, and you agree with the recommendation. So, Right Honorable Speaker, before I conclude, I would like to thank the Committee of Legal Rules and Privileges for their good work, for their commitment. But I would also like to recognize the following honorable members who made a contribution: Honorable Victor, Honorable Kalonzo, Honorable Oda, Honorable Abdikadir, Honorable Makame, Honorable Leontine, Honorable Dr. Anne, Honorable Happiness, Honorable Musamali, Honorable Marie Claire, Honorable Mariam, Honorable Dr. Magembe, Honorable Kalinda, Honorable Jean-Claude, Honorable Kim Guy, Honorable CTC, Honorable Chair Council, and our Speaker, although he doesn't contribute, but he also made contribution by guidance.
Thank you. And the honorable members who came with the points of clarifications, and Honorable Kennedy, Honorable Nur, and everyone else who contributed. Thank you so much, Chair. Honorable members, I now propose I now put the question that the report of the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges on the oversight activity on compliance of the EAC protocols and laws by the EAC institutions be adopted. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Next item, as per the amended order paper, laying of papers.
Chair, Council of Ministers.
Right, Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Article 134, Sub-Article 3 of the Treaty for Establishment of the East African Community, I beg to lay on the table the following audited financial statements of the East African Community's organs and institutions for the financial year ended 30th June 2018. 1. The audited financial statement of East African Community, including its projects and programs. 2. The audited financial statements of the East African Legislative Assembly. 3. The audited financial statements of the East African Court of Justice. 4. The audited financial statement of the Lake Victoria Basin Commissions, LVBC. 5. The audited financial statements of the Civil Aviation Safety and Security Oversight Agency, CASOA. 6. The audited financial statements of the Inter-University Council of East Africa, IUCEA. 7. The audited financial statements of Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization, LVFO. 8. The audited financial statements of East African Health Research Commissions. 9. The audited financial statements of the East African Science and Technology Commission. 10. The audited financial statements of the East African Competition Authority. 11. The audited financial statement of the East African Kiswahili Commission. Mr. Speaker, sir, each of the organs and institutions has got a management letter which form an integral part of the audit report. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The EAC audited the financial statements for the financial year ended 30th June 2018 are hereby referred to the Committee on Accounts.
Next item is laying of papers, Roman 2.
Chairperson of the subcommittee on the strategic plan.
Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the chairperson of the subcommittee on strategic plan, Honorable Dr. Obur Oginga, who is not here because he is not feeling well, I beg to lay a report on the subcommittee on Eala strategic plan 2019-2024. I beg to lay.
Yes, Honorable Francine, can you help switch off that microphone? Yes. Thank you, Honorable Ambassador Fatuma.
Next item, motion for a resolution of the Assembly paying tribute and congratulating the clerk, Mr. Kenneth Namboga Madete, and the deputy clerk, Mr. Alex Obatwe Lumumba, upon the completion of their service to the Assembly.
Honorable Musamali.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I'm moving a motion under Article 49 and 59(1) of the Treaty establishing the East African Community and Rule 26 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly. Motion.
Yes, you first move so for your motion to be seconded before you present it.
I want to move a motion, and the motion is motion for a resolution of the Assembly paying tribute and congratulating the clerk, Mr. Kennedy Namboga Madete, and deputy clerk, Mr. Alex Obatwe Lumumba, upon successful completion of their service to the Assembly and the community.
Thank you. Seconders? Honorable Kasamba, Honorable Dr. Gijema, Honorable Pamela, Honorable Dr. Woda, and all members standing. Honorable Musamari.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and honorable members for seconding this motion. Whereas Article 48(4) of the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community provides for a clerk of the Assembly appointed in accordance with the Article 49 2(f) of the treaty, and whereas the clerk is the chief executive officer of the Assembly who is responsible for a. Preparing and planning the strategic programs and activities of the Assembly, B, providing professional and technical advice to the Speaker and members of the Assembly on procedural and legislative matters, and C, initiation of policies that are required for the effective day-to-day administration and management of the Assembly, including promotion of the welfare needs of the members and staff of the Assembly, recognizing that Mr. Madete has been a parliamentary officer since February 1995, when he joined the Parliament of Uganda as a clerk assistant, and that Mr. Obatre Lumumba has been a parliamentary officer since February 1999, when he joined the Parliament of Uganda as a clerk assistant. Further recognizing that Mr. Madete joined the Assembly, the East African Legislative Assembly, in November 2002 as a principal clerk assistant, and Mr. Obatre Lumumba joined the Assembly in August 2007 as senior clerk assistant. Conscious that in November 2009, the Council, in recognition of the expertise of Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre in parliamentary procedures and practices, public policy, public administration and management, appointed the two officers as clerk and deputy clerk of the Assembly, respectively. Aware that as clerk and deputy clerk, Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre have been responsible for the capacity building programs of the Assembly, which have seen the Assembly grow from obscurity to a respectable one-of-a-kind regional assembly in Africa. Further, aware that during their tenure as clerk and deputy clerk, the Assembly has passed several critical laws to establish several institutions of the community and to deepen and widen the integration of the community. Grateful for the service of Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre, who have successfully completed their tenure as clerk and deputy clerk of the Assembly, cognizant of the provisions of Article 49(2)(d) of the treaty, which empowers the Assembly to discuss any matter pertaining to the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Assembly as follows: that in accordance with Article 49 of the treaty, the Assembly A, sincerely congratulates Mr. Kenneth Namboga Madete and Mr. Alex Lumumba Obatre upon the successful completion of their service as clerk and deputy clerk of the Assembly. B, the Assembly commends Mr. Kenneth Namboga Madete and Mr. Alex Lumumba Obatre for their dedicated service to the Assembly and the community. C, the Assembly urges the governments and national assemblies of the partner states to take advantage and utilize the expertise and experience of Mr. Kenneth Namboga Madete and Mr. Alex Lumumba Obatre, given the scarcity of experts of their caliber. And D, that the Assembly wishes Mr. Kenneth Namboga Madete and Mr. Alex Lumumba Obatre success in their future endeavors. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you, Honorable Musamari. You can go ahead and justify if you wish.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and members. Honorable Speaker, I have something to do with maybe 3 or 4 reasons as to why I am moving this motion for the Assembly to thank these grateful, gallant sons of Africa for the work well done. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, human resources is one of the most important resources in every organization and every community. But to get the human resources that deserve the respect and the value that we are attaching to the two clerks who served this assembly, and those who are dedicated, is also difficult. It is upon this background that because of the nature of the work which the two clerks were doing, and because of their dedication, their attitude, the value they attached to their work, and the value they attached to the people they were serving, and the community, that we have to thank them. Honorable Speaker, for example, during the tenure of the two clerks, Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre, Eala was able to be granted a sub-accounting status. Previously, even just to get a small payment, or for you to be facilitated, even members and staff of the assembly, you had to get clearance from the Secretary General. But under the tenure of the two officers, Eala was able to get this sub-accounting status, and now we are able to do the little work that we can do. I mean, the much work that we are doing, partly because of that achievement. Under the tenure of these two officers, Eala staffing was increased. For example, the number of clerks, at least they were increased. Public Relations Office was created. The Hazard Office, which had a small, even up to now, much as it has a small number, but previously it was worse. Office of the Sergeant at Arms was established, and there were also improved terms of service as a result of advocacy and lobbying and the skills that were applied by the two clerks, Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre Lumumba. The budget of Eala, Honorable Speaker, it was increased from a paltry 1.5 million US dollars. You can imagine, 1.5 million US dollars to 21.5 million US dollars. I'm aware that even that money is also not enough. But at least among some of our ethnic groups, they will tell you that something small, you complain when you have it where? Under your hands. So, yes, we are aware that the budget of Eala and the entire community is not enough. But at least what the two officials were able to negotiate for the assembly, we are able to do at least recommendable work because of their work. Number three, because of their skills, Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre were able to lobby for funding from other organizations like AWEPA as well as ACBF. AWEPA is African Capacity Building, Association of European Parliamentarians with Africa, and the ACBF is the African Capacity Building Foundation. So they were able to lobby for funding, and there is some funding for capacity building. They were funding for Eala and the staff to be involved in a number of activities. Honorable Speaker, I'm sure many of members here and staff, some of them have gone through some of these bad experiences. The reason why I'm moving this motion to thank these officials is that some of us have gone through bad experiences with bad workers, with bad supervisors, and they were occupying positions that were very important in the organization. I came across, Honorable Speaker, in one of the organizations, and I was working in that organization. I had a very bad experience with with an accounting officer of that organization. She had just been appointed to that office, and when she came to that office, do you know what she told us? She said that she had been advised by one of her friends that whenever she goes to any office, the first thing to start with is by sacking some of the staff to cause fear, and then as well as create space for you to bring in new people, and then who will respect you and follow you, but those who would have remained will fear you. You can now imagine. But these are people, that's part of social human resource. But when Mr. Obatre and Mr. Madete left this place, when you move around among the staff, and even among the members of the assembly here, many of them are in somber mood. The reason is not that these people are dead, no, but because they were good servants, and they are going to miss their services. They felt that these people should have remained and serve this community. But because of unavoidable circumstances, they had to leave to complete their tenure of service here and leave. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, and probably second last, mentorship. This is one of the most difficult things, by the way, which Africa is grappling with. But Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre, while serving this community, worked hard. I think they were also aware that their tenure is going to end, and they worked hard to mentor their subordinates. It is the reason as to why the Commission did not find it very difficult to find their replacement, even if it is in acting capacity. But at least because they were already there. They had been mentored, they had been groomed to take charge. And this is a serious lesson which we who are in leadership should take. Even at the level of ministers, much as you are appointed, but when you are working with others, mentor them, such that in case you leave, then I can take charge. Yes. Even so, this is very important. Let me share with you, because I came across Mr. Madete. He had been asked by council that they give him, together with Mr. Obatre Lumumba, that they give them another 6 months, after 30th of November, that they give them another 6 months for purpose of preparing their replacement. But they refused, not because they were disgusted with the assembly and serving the assembly and the community, but they said confidently that we have worked with people under us, we have nurtured them, we have groomed them, and we are confident that these people will take charge and serve the community the way we are serving. That is something which is really difficult, because some people, even when their tenure expires, they would go around lobbying, and lobbying sometimes it comes because of either selfishness or because of incompetence, that they have not done much of their work, and therefore the person who is coming may find some of the things which are not yet well done. Lastly, the two officers have left this assembly and the community with clean hands. Nobody has left this assembly with a tainted image. I've been told that people who have tainted images have long hands. I don't know whether those how long such hands are. But I'm told that those with long hands are wrong people anyway, in brief. They dip their hands in the resources of an organization or resources of the community. But Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre, they have left this organization, this community, without a bad spot on them. And when we look at that, we think it is worthy for us to appreciate them and to pray for them, such that, and yes, to pray for them, such that wherever they have gone, they are also received, because they are still young and active. they are still in very active working age. They can still be placed anywhere, just like we have put in the prayers, that if it is possible, where there are openings, we pray that they open those doors and have them. In fact, I will also take this straight away to council, that because the urge here is that we are urging council, the governments and national assemblies. So as the representatives of governments, of respective governments of the partner states, we are telling you that we have experts here. They are still young and active. But because of the nature of our law, they could not work beyond their terms as had been referenced. So, Honorable Speaker, basing on that justification and basing on their good work which was done, I beg to move that we appreciate those members. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and the members.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Paul Musamali. Honorable members, I now propose the motion that this assembly do resolve to pay tribute and congratulate the clerk, Mr. Kenneth Nambonga Madete, and the deputy clerk, Mr. Alex Obatre Rumumba, upon completion of their service to the assembly. Debate is open. Honorable Rugijema, Doctor, Honorable Kasamba, Honorable Rose, Honorable Pierre Claver, Honorable Dr. Makame, Honorable Woda. Dr. Woda.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I ready to support the motion, and by the way, I seconded the mover, and I thank him. Right Honorable Speaker, I have on this motion, I want to comment on point C, where the assembly, where the mover usually ask the parliament to urge the government and National Assembly of a partner state to take advantage and utilize the expertise and the experience of Mr. Kenneth Nambonga Madete and Mr. Alex Lumumba Obatre, given the scarcity of expel of the caliber. This is an important point for me to comment on it. Right Honorable Speaker, the clerk and the deputy clerk, one served for 17 years, and the deputy clerk for 12 years, is a lot of period for being in this august assembly. And after those years, see how they can go back home in the country, and when we are at home, they are not doing anything, while they have a lot of experience. It's really a problem. And I have opportunity to even to extend, not only for those two clerks, but also for MPs, my colleagues here. Mainly, I am advocating for those who are still younger, who are at the age of working. The treaty, our Bible, it's for 5 years, renewable once. It means 10 years. I imagine those who are 30 years, 20, and so on, or 40, you add 10 years, you will get perhaps 40 years, still at the age of working. I'm wondering, Right Honorable Speaker, your predecessor, Right Honorable Dan Chidega, a young man, bright, has a very good experience. I don't think right now he's given something to do. Not. And in some countries, even in your region, I think Honorable Ambassador Fatuma can testify. When you come from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, you are deployed somewhere to become ambassador. There are some term limit. In US is 4 years, and then you are changed from one country to another, or you are taken back to your Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But you are not put in a chair waiting not to get something. We are diplomats. We were supposed, for those who are still at the age of working, to go back and either be given something to do, and not to know where to don't know where to go. I am a member of Eala 3. Member of Eala 3, those who got the chance, the opportunity to come back, or in Rwanda, those who were expected to come back, or come back. In Uganda, those who were expected to come back, come back. In Kenya, 8 were expected to come back. No one showed up. In Tanzania, I think there was, I think 1 or 2, and all the remaining were expected to come back. No one, they come 2 only. In Burundi, I cannot say, I don't know. South Sudan is new.
Honorable Dr. Wijema, why that line of argument can backfire is that if you appreciate the fact that those who are eligible should have an opportunity to come back, you offend those who came. And if you appreciate that those who came really merited to come, then you defeat the argument that...
Speaker,
yeah, it's on a light note anyway.
Yes, thank you very much for your guidance. What I'm saying and I focus on, it's really when we end up here, now those who come, now they are concerned when they are ending their term, if we are coming back or not. If not, what we have to do. I think, Honorable Speaker, this point of the clerk and the deputy clerk, we have to see how to push strongly with the argument and to push the partner state in which they come from to see how they can utilize them. They have experience, they have knowledge, they have attitude, they have whatever I can say to serve the country better, because being here for 17 years or 12 years, it was not for losing time. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Wijema. Honorable Kasamba.
Right Honorable Speaker, allow me to congratulate my brother, Honorable Musamali, and Honorable Pierre Celestine Wijema, Doctor, for having brought this motion to recognize the services of our 2 brothers who have ended their tour of duty within our organ of the East African Legislative Assembly. Right Honorable, I want to support the motion, but also I want to remind this House that there are quite many other colleagues who have left. And the most challenging was when we were in Nairobi last year, undertaking the budget process. And I remember the commission requested the council of ministers who were running out of manpower. I remember I had a clerk, senior clerk assistant, Madame Beatrice, and many others. I think there were 4 staffs whom we requested to extend their contracts for the time being as you undertake recruitment. This was totally objected, and I want to request that we should widen this motion to include all the staff of the Eala who have ended their tour of duty, to recognize the efforts, the dedication, the commitment, and the tireless efforts they did to sustain this institution. It is one of the modern ways to recognize that we come, serve, and go. So I want to commend the efforts of my brother, the 2 brothers who have brought this. I happen to have worked with Mr. Madete in the Parliament of Uganda from 2001. Equally, together with Mr. Obature Lumumba, before they were seconded to come and kickstart the establishment of the parliamentary system. Actually, even Mr. Alfred and my brother Manzi. Manzi was my clerk when I was chair of the Committee of Defense. So I want to appreciate the organic way of identifying the best of the best to be seconded to the regional parliament. And I think that's why you find that Eala and the East African community stands out in Africa, as my brothers have mentioned, as one of the model organs or institutions of the regional blocks. I want to commend, because when Mr. Madete joined in 2002, that is when the assembly had just been established. So it was at a formative stage with no systems in place, with no mechanism. But I want to appreciate by the time they are leaving, they've left us at least well established with the institutions to govern Eala. What we have missed is the total autonomy. We have the commission to administer. We have the clerk, the Department of Clerks. We have the account systems. As he has mentioned originally, even now, we still have a string with the East African Community Secretariat. But at least you know that we are more or less semi-autonomous. So we commend the efforts they've done, the degree of diligence they've served the community, and we pray that they continue to to join the team of experts. My brother has mentioned the Honorable Dan Kidega. I served with the Honorable Dan Kidega in the National Parliament when he was still a youth MP. And when he did not make it, as he has mentioned, you know, for us politicians, we compete for space. Even technical officers compete for space, but through interviews. So, when Honorable Dan Kidega came this way, we are part of the team who pushed him. Actually, we have a group called the Humanitarian Support Uganda, where we are about 5 or 6 credible people committed to ensure that we do the best of our best to support others. So when we came here, he served his tour of duty. Unfortunately, when he left, you know what happened in the third Eala, the contradiction they underwent, the team from Uganda, and the chief executive was not happy because he cautioned them and he said, please go slow, I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And since then, because they did not heed to his advice, he has said, okay, stay put. So, but I want to bring out this issue that comrades, Council of Ministers, as Eala and as a community, we should not just shy away from the team of experts you've accumulated in the tour of the 10 years or 15 years served at the community level. One of the biggest success of private sector businesses is growing through the ranks and building competences. And I think, given the capacity these teams have gained, I don't differ from my colleagues. We can look at the regional level. We still have a lot of human resource gaps where we need to build institutions. And they've portrayed the competence to establish institutions, and they continue to exist. And by the mere fact, one time I traveled with Mr. Madete when he was going back, as he was finishing off winding up his tour of duty, and he said there was the option of extension. He said, I would have set a very wrong precedent to say, because I've been requested to extend, I also sit and go and continue. Said, the world out there has a lot of opportunities. Let me give space for others, and I go and also begin a new life. So I want to appreciate, and I want to thank the Right Honourable Speaker, as you mentioned earlier on when we are beginning this week, that we shall hold a get-together when we're in Kampala to appreciate their duty. It is part of the organizational signals of maturity, of appreciation, and then we have a time out with them, with their families. Actually, he told me it will be better when we are in Kampala, when we have also our families, to be settled back. The families recognize that we are not there as strangers, but we had people who appreciate what we are doing. So I would commend the efforts of the Speaker, as you mentioned, that we shall converge in Kampala in the course of next week. We invite them with their families, together with maybe the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda. This is how we return them to their homeland. It is civility. It's part of the civil obedience of making sure that they play their part. We've returned them, and they could be redeployed anywhere to ensure that the community continues to thrive with the expertise of the many years they served at the center of establishing and making sure that the East African Legislative Assembly gained its root and competence as it is. I support the motion, and I pray that they continue to serve the community diligently, and we continue to give competences where it is all overdue. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kasamba. Honorable Rose.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to, together with my colleagues, move a vote of thanks for Mr. Kenneth Madete and Mr. Alex Obatwe Lumumba on account of the service that they are given to this community. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the move of the motion, that it is timely. I want to say better late than never, because my thinking would have been that we should be talking like this when the people we are talking about are seated there, so that they hear how much we appreciate what they have done, and that we wish them well. It would have been better if that opportunity was given when they're still around, but still better late than never. And I want to appreciate Honorable Msamali for thinking about this motion. Right Honorable Speaker, here in this community, I've always said this, but I think it is now Lamentations. I'm reading from the book of Lamentations in the Bible. That it is this Eala that trains and develops human resource, and then after 10 years they are thrown out there as if they are totally useless material. It is very absurd. And I think this is the reason why I still want to plead with the council that allow this institution its independence, so that it may handle its activities and do what it thinks is the best for this institution and for the community. It's a high time we are given independence, and of course the same applies to the EACJ, that's the East African Court of Justice. And I've said it is a good governance principle that is practiced in our member states, and I don't see any reason as to why up to now this institution should not be given its independence, so that when we employ our staff, they are permanent and pensionable. That we maintain, especially after training up to this level, we maintain them so that they give us the best service that this community deserves. But it's very unfortunate that we have not been given the opportunity to take our own decisions. And I'm still requesting, give us the opportunity to be autonomous so that we can handle some of these things in the best way we think. Because we have requested for autonomy and requested, and nothing is upcoming. Right, Honourable Speaker, now that this is the status quo so far, I think it's a high time we recommended. I hope this will happen when we're in Kampala, and maybe in the Speakers Forum, when you meet, maybe these are some of the issues we will discuss. There are quite a number of intelligent staff that have left this Eala and this community. I remember we had a clerk for general purpose who had actually mastered the art of handling this committee. But she has gone, I don't know where she is, I don't know what she's doing. The same applies to these two staff. Right, Honourable Speaker, it's the high time we recommended to our national assemblies, perhaps this would be better, that for certain staff that are actually difficult to get on the street, like clerks go through a lot of training, and their training is not found anywhere. You are trained in Parliament, nowhere else. It's a high time we recommended that let these clerks be seconded. If it is contract, okay, fine. But let them come here on secondment from the assemblies of the member states, so that when they exhaust and finish their tour of duty and have got the training that they have got here and the expertise, they go back and serve in their member states still as maybe at higher levels within their member state parliaments, so that we don't get this human resource wasted. Because for me, it is a waste. It's a waste of resources, and it's a waste of human resource to just release after every 10 years, you are pumping, you are churning people out to the streets. At least for us politicians, it's a 5-year contract with the voters. It's a 5-year contract with the voters. If the voters find that you performed well, then they may deem it right to bring you back. But with the trained, skilled staff, I think we need to rethink our strategy and how we do things here in this community. Right, Honourable Speaker, the departure of these two experts, I want to call them experts, again, definitely creates a very big gap in the staff levels of especially the Legislative Assembly and in the clerk's department. I think about 5 now. I know of 4, I don't know. So far 5 have left. It's just like the Hansard department, 1 person. Now clerk's department, these ones are going to run around. I'm told there are even some of them who have taken 3 to 4 months without seeing their families because they are here working. And you know, when we leave plenary, we go immediately on committee work. So they never get time even to settle down with their families. And now with the departure of another additional 2, I don't know how they are going to manage that department. Honestly, if we want quality, and if we care about the people whom we employ in this East African community, we should lead by example. The regional assembly, the regional the regional integration body should lead by example. So we need to have urgently, it's an appeal now to council. I'm aware you've done in the institutional review report, I don't know whether this time it will be acceptable, but this has been a program or a project that has been on for over 10 years. Now, I even understand the report that has come out recently is still unacceptable to the people or to the organs that are meant to be affected by this report. And of course, we have also heard that actually you are going into another involuntary retrenchment exercise by downgrading, by, so many things are in that report. Some people have been downgraded and therefore they have to lose their jobs. Some heads of department have outrightly been recommended for those departments to be non-existent. Now, in the name of cutting costs, how? I wonder what it is meant to be, if at all it is cutting costs, when all those affected actually are not happy and are considering that the report actually has not even handled the key issues that it should have handled as terms of reference. So, well, we hear the institutional review report is out, but for us, me who is seated in this assembly, I'm requesting that you allow, exceptionally, it's an exception, because for all this over 10 years that this report was being written, there was a freeze on recruitment. And it's the reason we have audit queries on temporary staff. At least on all the reports I've looked at, there's always a query on temporary staff because the institutional review program is still going on and there's a freeze on recruitment. So I'm requesting council, can you allow this assembly as an emergency to handle its staff strategy in all the departments to at least recruit meanwhile the institutional review report is being handled?
Honorable Rose, maybe I needed to provide information here, and I like the fact that you are emphasizing this point. I had a meeting with the Council of Ministers, I think last week, and I raised these same issues, and the Council understood. They confirmed to me they understood our concerns. And when I adjourned in the morning for 30 minutes, I was actually going to meet the council members again over this same issue, because I had been told that the Human Resource Department was drawing a very long roadmap of recruiting the staff in the vacancies we have. So I wanted the council to intervene. The 30 minutes I suspended the House, it was for that purpose. And the council confirmed to me that they are going to take up the matter and make sure that when we resume for the next plenary, and of course, we'll try as much to observe the procedure. But when we resume, in the next plenary, we should have recruited staff in this. So we are in agreement with the council that certain procedures are not necessary. For example, to be specific, why I rushed to meet the council members within the 30 minutes I suspended the House is because I had learned that the Human Resource Department intends to invite the Ad hoc Service Commission to come here, stay for a week, working on job description, and go home and advertise for 2 weeks and invite another team of experts to evaluate the applications, and a very long process. But one simple question is, and the council is fully in agreement, why do you want to draw a job description on a vacancy that has been there? Because we wanted to recruit the clerk, and the clerk has been there. We have changed nothing except a few things that Honorable Rose is also alluding to, the upgrading down, which we also raised with the council, and the council is in the process of fixing that. But why do you draw the job description on a position that has been there for more than 10 years? It is the same, it has not changed. Yes, and you want us to spend 1 month in that process. So I really like the fact that members are emphasizing this, and the council members promised in the morning that they are going to take up this matter and make sure that it doesn't happen. Please help us to feel. There are 2 issues. There are positions that have been confirmed in the new structure, the report of the Ad Hoc Service Commission. Those are the ones we want availed immediately. There are those that we think should also be given to us, but which were not given. We have already made a case to that effect. The council is going to handle that. One example is that we need to have the number of committee assistants equal at least to a number of partner states. Because if you have 3, it means for certain activities like when we break in 2 chapters, you would have only half the number of chapters facilitated. And that is at a time when we will no longer have a temporary staff to step in. So at the minimum, you can have the number of committee assistants equal to the number of partner states, so that for activities that take place simultaneously, we are able to deploy to every place. So, but I emphasize the point that, in my point of view, and maybe the council, although I understand their predicament, they wanted to pronounce themselves when they have made a decision formally. But when I met them, all of them, it was a full council. The ministers and the attorneys general, and they told me they are going to discuss this shortly before the next summit, because that is when they wanted us to put it in a certain format, which we did. But my reading of the body language, they were very understanding. And I hope we'll have this. But particularly in the meantime, these positions, the vacancies that are already available must be filled. There is no business as usual having to wait. Like we met last week. You remember Honorable Ndumbaro was the only minister around. We met the Director of Human Resources. We said, why can't you, for example, invite the Ad Hoc Service Commission now? Call them now. But the response I got yesterday, and you were not here, is that they need 21 days notice. Okay, agreed. Now, can you give notice now so that we start counting? Yes. Now they say, it will fall into a time when we are on holiday. Fine. But what would happen if it falls into the time when we are on holiday? It means they will come after 21 days. So they have no complaint to make, because it will be not less than. So instead of waiting to start counting later, why can't you start counting now? So why can't we invite the Ad Hoc Service Commission to come here? You sit with them, you agree on whatever you have to agree, and you advertise. Instead of inviting them to do some talking, go back, plan to advertise at a later point. This time it is not going to be acceptable. With all due respect, Honorable Ministers, and I'm happy you are on board on this. Otherwise, we will not be able to work when we resume. We won't be able to work. These 2 gentlemen who are acting as clerk and deputy clerk are leaving their respective positions that are even more important to the committees. If Mr. Tuguma is not able to sit here because he's doing other duties of a deputy clerk, a certain committee will not be facilitated. CTI. Yes. But I hope the ministers, they have really made a very strong commitment that they are going to help. Thank you. Honorable Rosen.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the information you are giving the House. And my prayer is that it is taken as it is. Right Honourable Speaker, of course we are aware, a lot of things are happening here. And the other day, I remember during the budget process, Honorable Abdikadir talked about, staff having served for all these years, and there is no salary increment whatsoever. And this is the situation we are in, when we have senior staff who have served all these years for no extra penny ever since they joined this institution. It's very sad. So I'm saying this because, you know, we are talking about the institutional review. I hope this time, as you handle staff recruitment, something additional is given in those salary scales when you handle when you streamline, because I know right now it's not streamlined. You have a structure for a head of department at a certain scale, and then a head of department also secretary at a lower scale. Yet they are doing the same things, you know, same level. The more reason it should be the institutions themselves to handle this, as much as that report may be a guide. Then also for the position of clerk here, Right Honourable Speaker. On that report, I'm saying this because I want the council to know that we are aware about this. How can it be that the executive secretary of the Kiswahili Commission is graded higher than a clerk who heads one of the organs of this great community? I don't know. I don't know what the logic was. But those are some of the challenges that actually we are appealing, that actually that report also has a lot of issues and it needs to be reviewed. It may not pass as it is. And we are requesting as an assembly, this we requested through our committee, as the Committee of Accounts, to meet council, but unfortunately we haven't had that opportunity. But let me say this now that we are debating this one. I think it's the second time we are requesting that the institutional review report should also be brought to this assembly, and we have a look at it, because I think even the treaty allows us to have a say on this report. We look at it before it is finally approved by council. We know council has the ad hoc committee, which are experts. I don't know whether the experts in recruitment and all these things, but it's also questionable, Right Honourable Speaker, that we have a human resource department at the ESC, and it's the ad hoc. That ad hoc committee is the one which comes here to handle recruitment. I don't know what happened or how this community is run. That you'll have a human resource department, but there's another ad hoc something that does recruitment. All those things need to be looked at. Actually, there's too much, but Right Honourable Speaker, I want to conclude by saying that when we go to Kampala, there is need, as Honourable Kasamba said, that we need to call our staff really before us and we thank them with all those who have left. I remember there's that lady who was the clerk to agriculture and then general purpose. Then there is another gentleman, Enoch. I know him as Enoch. Yes, and others. We really need to call and say thank you. It is the norm in many institutions, and it should be the norm at this ESC level, as an I don't know, but that is it. We need to be...
Maybe I should also provide information that the Secretariat always organizes that, and it happened. But we want one of our own, as Eala. In the past it was an omission, but this time we'll do that. But the Secretariat always organizes a function to honor those who are exiting. But the Eala specific arrangement is a good idea also.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I was only concluding, and I also want to conclude by saying I want to thank the various staff who have left this institution and have served it diligently, and also thank the mover of this motion for reminding us that it is very important that we move a vote of thanks for these very two special staff who have just left the service of the community. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Cravel, then Honourable Dr. Makame. I'm reminding you that today we may be having also to leave at a certain time. and we have one more item waiting. So please consider that those who will have had an opportunity to comment are speaking on our behalf. So it doesn't have to be everyone.
Thanks a lot, Right Honorable Speaker. And I stand to support the motion and join my voice to my predecessors who will support the motion raised by Honorable Paul Msamari. The motion for resolution of the Assembly paying tribute and congratulating the Clerk, Mr. Kenneth Madete, and Deputy Clerk upon successful completion of their exercise to the Assembly and the community. Just given, and I think I'll be very brief so that I leave time to my others. Just given the time when Mr. Kenneth Madete joined the Assembly, I think from 2002, it been 17 years. That means that
actually, I think that includes the time he joined the Parliament of Uganda.
Yes. Okay. That is, yes. I say that, and regarding the progress made by the Assembly, it's obvious that his role was crucial. That's why it's important to support and recognize the merit and the spirit that brought by this motion is I think the one to make that to be recognizant to someone who has served and for the community, especially for the Assembly. And I would go to an anecdote. That's why I take the floor, because I didn't have a long time to work with the clerk Kenneth Madete, but on social side, I found he was a good man, a social man, and a mobilizer. In our team of football of the Assembly, it happened that he was a good mobilizer and supporting the youth, because we had a team of staff and some friends around, and Madete happened to be more than the sponsor or the supporter. At point of that, the young players named their team. When we are not playing, their team is named Kenneth Madete Sport Club, and that's a sign that they are recognizing to him and grateful, and that's good. That's good thing to recognize that someone have support, not only in the official and administrative, but also in social side. So I would like to support the motion and encourage the Assembly to do so for the time coming.
Thank you very much, Honorable Claver. Honorable Dr. Makame.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to air my voice to this motion. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to commend my brother, Comrade Paul Mwasa Musamali, for coming with this idea of bringing this motion. Actually, Mr. Speaker, they say better late than never. And it has come timely. And Honorable Kasamba, when contributing, I was thinking he was actually trying to preempt what I wanted to come and say here, Mr. Speaker. Because the issue here, I was trying to remember, we had another clerk in the General Purpose Committee who exited by the name of Elizabeth Barinda. We had another clerk, Beatrice Ndaize, and I was saying, actually, you know, as a member of General Purpose, I'm seeing Honorable Brother Kenneth Madete and Lumumba being congratulated, and this might also bring a gender issue. So as a member of General Purpose, I was very gender sensitive. I said these ladies did an excellent work, and we have also to recognize their contribution, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, to balance this motion, I'd recommend to the mover of the motion to include those other staff who exited. Because actually, when you are working as a chief executive officer, you have a team. And the team, you are becoming like a body. The body has hands, has eyes, has legs, and you cannot achieve what you want to achieve unless all those organs are operating. And that is how the Eala staff is working here. So, Mr. Speaker, Just wanted to move that, and I'm quite sure my brother has alluded to that, so that we make an amendment, as already proposed by Honorable Kasamba and Honorable Rose Akol. Mr. Speaker, other than that, I fully support this motion and the spirit which Honorable Akol has proposed, and you have already indicated that we are going to move that way to recognize our staff. Because, you know, a human being likes, if I really appreciate, it's more than money, if you appreciate somebody's contribution. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, Honorable Dr. Oda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the chance to add my voice also and appreciate our clerks. And I would like to congratulate Honorable Paul and Honorable Dr. Pierre for this very important motion. Right, Honorable Speaker, I really want to thank the effort and the hard work of the two clerks to promote and enhance the work of this assembly. And I really can't forget that they're the one who help us to be sworn in this house when we start our duty, and also they help to induct us into this very honorable assembly. And in this juncture also, I would like to commend and appreciate the work of all our clerks here in this assembly who work silently, and they work really very hard for us to accomplish the work of this assembly. I really appreciate that. And I would like also to support the amendment by the Honorable Kasamba and Dr. Makembe to add the other clerks who left, especially our clerk, Dr. Makami Abdullah, for the important amendment to add the clerks who left us. We had really this very nice lady from Burundi, Madame Beatrice, who was our clerk, and I'm still in a very good relationship with her. And yesterday I was so happy to see that her daughter is one of the interns here also in the ESC. So I would like them to be added. And also I want to ask my honorable colleagues so that we support our clerks and appreciate the work they do here. And as guided by the honorable speaker, I wanted to add also my appreciation to one of the ESC staff, Honorable Jessica. But you said that the ESC has its own arrangement for them, but she really worked very hard, and I wish her very quick recovery. And as guided by the speaker also, I appreciate the promise which was made by the Council of Ministers to urgently recruit a staff to the Assembly as soon as possible. And I wish that this promise will be fulfilled, because the shortage of the staff is really affecting our work in a negative way. I beg to support, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I had said finally. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. So, Honorable Musamari, can you wind up, please?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. First of all, for giving us the opportunity, myself and the Honorable Doctor, we are going to learn to. Yes, the Honorable Dr. Celestine.
You are learning slowly about his new titles.
For giving us this opportunity to move this motion, in appreciating our colleagues, our staff who completed their tour of duty. Just a quick one. Something which has come out ideally is about the issue of terms of reference. Honorable Speaker, terms of service of the staff of the community. I think it is something which is important, which the Council should look at. I'm sure that the reasons that informed the insertion of term limits or contract limits in these terms of service at the time of reestablishing of the community could have changed. Probably they could look at it because when you look at churning out to very productive young people. I think they need to review that, such that we don't cause unnecessary stress to people. I know that if someone comes here and knowing that he's going to serve for 2 terms and is leaving, sometimes they are prepared. But for us, we are looking at now this skill which has been prepared. Honorable Speaker, the proposal by Honorable Makame that we include some of the clerks who were here before, I will hesitate to do it for the reason being that, for 2 reasons. One, that I have not checked the Hansard. Probably they could have been appreciated by the assembly which was there at the time. And which clerk are we talking about? We are talking of the first clerk.
They're referring about those who left while we were here.
No, the proposal to include other staff, I'm going to accept that to include in the motion other staff of Eala, not necessarily the clerks, because we also have the researchers, we had the other staff. So that one, I'm taking that one. Then these 2 staffs, Mr. Madete and Mr. Obatre, they worked under very difficult circumstances at the time when the community was just starting. I also want to bring to the attention of the House that at the time they joined this assembly, they were not the clerks and the deputy clerks. Mr. Madete was the principal clerk assistant, and Mr. Obatre was the senior clerk assistant. There was a substantive clerk, and there was a substantive clerk who resigned midway. What does that mean? It could not be maybe because of conditions or because of, but they resigned. But when you look at the conditions of service at the beginning, probably they were not very comfortable, but they resigned. Then the second one refused to renew the contract. After serving the first term, he says, this one, to hell with your things. So you can see. But these 2 officers stood the turbulent waters.
Honorable Musamari, you said most of that during your justification.
Just lastly.
Yes.
The gaps in the recruitment, you have talked about it, but I just want to emphasize that council should take the necessary steps and recruit. They should not cause separations or divorces in the families. Because if a staff is here for 4 or 5 months and his wife or her husband is in the partner state, don't you think there can be a serious social problem? So, council, please address this matter such that we have a widely and deeply integrated society, not disintegrated over social matters. Let me take this opportunity to thank all of the members who have supported this motion, and those who have contributed, and even those who have not been able to contribute, because I saw the support was overwhelming, but because of time and other activities, you will not be able to contribute to this. But you have been able, in spirit, to contribute to this motion. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Dr. Celestine Rujema, the Honorable Matthias Kasamba, the Honorable Rose Akol, Honorable Pierre Clever Rakamvie, the Honorable Dr. Abdallah Makame, and the Honorable Dr. Warda Jeremiah. Thank you very much, and thank you for supporting the motion.
Thank you, Honorable Musamari. Honorable members, I will now put the question, and I want you to presume the question in line with the motion as amended. And the question is that this assembly do resolve to pay tribute and congratulate the clerk, Mr. Kenneth Namboga Madete, and Deputy Clerk, Mr. Alex Obatre Lumumba, upon completion of their service to the assembly. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the motion is accepted with amendment. And honorable members, if I was in your position, possibly I would have said much more because I worked with these two gentlemen and those who were there before them, those who left earlier, much more closely. And I can confirm to you that you have said it all. And as I said in my communication when we started this sitting, we will organize something for them, and possibly we'll have another opportunity to speak about them. It's not about, as you said, it's not about these two. It's about everyone that we work with. Those whose faces are not captured by the cameras, whose voices are not in the clips we see in TVs, but who do a lot to support our work. When you walk along the corridors of these offices, you see the policy. I think there is a policy somewhere, how we need to relate with our staff. So it is really befitting, it is classy, it is civil, that we appreciate those who work alongside us. And we must appreciate them every day in how we relate with them, how we speak to them, how we engage with them, how we relate with them, not only when they are exiting. So this is something that we need to demonstrate every day. So it's a very important thing that you have done. And thank you, Honorable Musamali and Honorable Rugejema, for coming up with this possibility for all of us to appreciate our colleagues, our staff. Thank you.
Next item on the order paper, presentation of the Eala strategic plan for the period 2019 to 2024 by way of motion.
Honorable members, may I remind you that in one of our informal settings, this plan was presented to you. And I think you had a lot of time to discuss it. So it was deliberate, so that you get to know what our subcommittee had done in order for us to shorten the phase that we are going into. So although that one was in an informal setting, but I just assume that the content is the same, and the opinions you provided then is what is reflected in the document. So now I call the chairperson of the subcommittee to present to move the motion.
Right Honorable Speaker, I wish to move the motion that the report of the subcommittee on the Eala Strategic Plan 2019-2024 be presented to the Assembly. I beg to move.
Yes, thank you. Seconders? Honorable Musamali, Honorable Rutazana, Honorable Pamela, Honorable Kalinda, Honorable Oda, Honorable Kasamba, and all members are standing.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me start by communicating that I'm representing Honorable Dr. Obur Oginga, who is the chairperson of this subcommittee. But as I said, he's not feeling well, so he requested that I represent him. On the title, as you can see, I wish to make some quick correction where they say Subcommittee on Eala Strategic Plan 2019. It is 2024, not 2014. I think that was a slight typo error. The second observation I want to make is that As the Right Honorable Speaker said, we had time to engage honorable members. We had a whole informal session, and I believe you've also received the copies of the final draft. It's about 56 pages. You shared your inputs, and you've taken note of them, but you also had an opportunity to meet stakeholders of the community, including private sector, civil society, some of the organs and institutions of the community, so that it is really a participatory and owned process. So what I'm going to read to you is really a summary of summaries, but I hope this is going to attract you to go back and read this strategic plan. Even when it is adopted, we don't want it to be shelved. We want it to be owned by all of you. We want it to be a point of reference in our planning, in our implementation. You need to monitor it so that it can guide day-to-day work of the Assembly for the next 5 years. Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of Eala Commission, during the month of June 2018, following the Eala Commission decision, the Right Honorable Speaker constituted a subcommittee comprised of the following members to develop the Eala Strategic Plan 2019-2024. These include Honorable Dr. Oburu Ging, Chairperson, Honorable Leontine Zaimana, Member, Honorable Fatuma Ndangiza, Member, Honorable Dr. Woda Jeremiah, Member, Honorable Msamali Mwasa Paul, Member, Honorable Engineer Pamela Masai, Member. The committee commenced in earnest the development of the strategic plan on 9th November 2018. The committee has since held a series of meetings and carried out other activities to develop the strategic plan, which has been almost concluded now. But before I proceed, there are also other important people who assist us in the development of this strategic plan, and these are no other than our clerk, Alfred Tugume, and also Dr. Nahayo, who worked with us, and I want to say that they did a brilliant job. The committee used the various methodologies, and one of them is the literature review. Honorable members, strategic planning is a systematic process of envisioning a desired future and translating this vision into broadly defined goals or objectives and the steps to achieve them. This requires comprehensive data collection and analysis, as well as cross-referencing. Therefore, the information presented in the strategic plan should be factual and anchored in law. Accordingly, in the preparation of this strategic plan, the subcommittee reviewed, among others, the following documents or sources of information: the Treaty for Establishment of the East African Community, the 5th EAC Development Strategy 2016-2017, 2020-2021, commitments of partner states and the EAC at global and continental levels, Eala Rules of Procedure, Eala Strategic Plan 2013-2018, key Eala reports such as the report on spot assessment of EAC Central Corridor and EAC Northern Corridor, EAC institutions, projects and programs, and a comparative analysis of strategic plans of other parliaments, such as the national parliaments of the Republics of Kenya, Republics of Rwanda, Republics of Uganda, and United Republic of Tanzania. Ownership and stakeholders consultation. A strategic plan is a statement of a desired future and the goals that must be collectively pursued and achieved. The Assembly will continue to play an important role in the progressive implementation of the pillars of EAC integration and be perpetually responsive to the needs and aspirations of the people of East Africa. To guarantee the highest level of acceptance and enthusiastic implementation of this strategic plan, there is need to ensure an extensive participatory and consultative process during which the views of all stakeholders are taken into account. Besides building ownership by Eala Commission, members and staff of the Assembly, the process of developing a strategic plan should enlist the inputs of other stakeholders as well. To this end, the committee held a stakeholders meeting on 27th June 2019. Today, I take this opportunity to present the final draft strategic plan before the Assembly to enable honorable members appreciate what the Assembly would pursue in the next 5 years. It also affords us the opportunity to enlist your support, which will be critical in the effective implementation of this plan. Structure of the draft strategic plan. The draft strategic plan has 5 chapters as follows. Chapter 1 is institutional review. This chapter includes introduction, background, vision, mission, core values of the EAC, membership, tenure, mandate, administrative structure of the Assembly, its relations with other EAC organs, its other stakeholders, as well as its mission, vision, and core values. Guiding principles in the development of the strategic plan. Chapter 2 is on situational analysis, which cover the status of implementation of the previous strategic plan, 2013-2018, the legislative function of the Assembly, human resources and organizational structure. Most of the issues that were being discussed regarding staffing, challenges, career progression, succession plan, the issue of autonomy, all of them are integrated in this strategic plan under this part. Administrative and financial matters, detailed SWOT analysis, and stakeholders analysis. Chapter 3 is on strategic direction, objectives and outcomes, which covers an overview of the EAC strategic direction, EAC priority development areas, EAC strategic development objectives, emerging issues for the Assembly, the Eala strategic objectives and outcomes. Chapter 4 is on resource mobilization. This chapter covers financial trends and projected resource requirements, risk analysis and mitigation measures. Chapter 5 is on implementation of the strategic plan and provides for the implementation framework, the monitoring and evaluation framework. The strategic objectives. Right Honorable Speaker, the treaty for the establishment of the EAC treaty bestows upon the Assembly 3 key functions: legislation, oversight, and representation. The progressive implementation of the pillars of the EAC integration continues to create high expectations from the people of East Africa and the resultant call for legal and institutional reforms and service provision. The Assembly will continue to play an important role in furthering the EAC integration agenda. In line with our treaty mandate, the strategic priorities of the EAC, as contained in the 5th EAC Development Strategy 2016-2017 to 2020-2021, and the situational analysis of the Eala, the following are the proposed strategic objectives that will shape the agenda of the Assembly in the next 5 years. 1 is to facilitate the implementation of the 4 pillars of integration agenda. 2, to operationalize and consolidate the financial and administrative autonomy of the East African Legislative Assembly. 3rd is to strengthen harmonious working relations with other EAC organs and institutions in the furtherance of the integration agenda. 4th is to strengthen partnership and collaboration with national and other regional parliaments. Fifth is to enhance Eala's collaborative engagement with the private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders. The sixth is to enhance the capacity of members and staff to strengthen the performance of the Assembly. The seventh strategic objective is to establish a strong monitoring and evaluation framework for Eala. Eighth is to enhance the corporate image of Eala. Ninth, to facilitate the implementation of AU Agenda 2063 and UN Sustainable Development Goals. And 10 is to support and strengthen the East African Parliamentary Institute, EAPI. Approval and launch of the strategic plan. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm happy to report that the presentation of the final draft strategic plan before you is expected to enlist the approval and adoption of this policy document. We hope that before the end of the month of January 2020, the Office of the Clerk will have concluded the printing and publication of this strategic plan, which will be followed by the official launch. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fatuma. Honorable members, the motion before the House is that the East African Legislative Assembly Strategic Plan 2019-2024 be adopted. Debate is open. And as I said, you had time to look at this document and made your input, but still debate is open. Honorable Aden.
Honorable Speaker, let me just maybe put one or two words into this. First of all, to really commend the team that did the strategic plan. This is a great job. Our strategic plan, as was rightfully defined, is actually what gives an organization the direction to proceed. And therefore, now that we are looking at our plan into the future to 2024, with all this, I think it is a very, very important work that has been done. And usually, organizations pay a lot of money to consultants to do this kind of work. The fact that it was done by our own at minimal cost, I think is something that is very, very good. It's something that probably even other organs of this institution should actually emulate to make sure that it is to save costs and to tailor something that is actually developed by the very people that it concerns. I think the strategic objectives set for us are also very good and very, very clear, and they are in sync with the rest of the larger EAC. You know, when you look at our efforts to facilitate the integration pillars, I think this is very important. This is what this House has been doing. I remember during our passage of the bill of the monetary union, the institute in Dodoma, such a huge bill, and a similar bill also passed by our colleagues in CTI. But nonetheless, as Eala, within one sitting, I remember in Dodoma, we were able to take that bill through all its stages. And that actually was a show of commitment. Why? Because we were actually racing against time so that we as Eala do not become anything that delays that process. So what I am happy about is that Eala is now reinforcing, and I think from the very rich debates that we have had from the floor of this House this time, Eala is always ready, with its gear engaged, to move in the direction of anything that is that will help in the facilitation of trade, in the facilitation of improvement of policies, in making our regions safer in terms of ensuring levels of preparedness, as we were debating here yesterday. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate very much the work that is done about our staff and the enhancement of our staff capacity. I think this is one area that we really need to focus in. Honorable Speaker, other parliaments send their staff far and wide across the world for them to go and gain additional knowledge. You rightfully said earlier today in the earlier debate, our staff are our backbone. Without them, we can't move. They are the technocrats. They are the people who hold this organization together. They are the ones who guide us procedurally, because we are politicians. Sometimes we want to move things. We know it's for the good intent and purpose, but they are the ones who tell us, you know what, procedures require 1, 2, 3. Let's do 1, 2, 3. Honorable Speaker, the fact that this strategic plan is coming with a roadmap to build that capacity for our staff indeed is something that is very, very encouraging to see. And I think on that note as well, this strategic plan, I'm sure, will also address the issues of Eala functionally being able to be in charge of its own affairs and its own things. And that is what these particular strategic objectives talk to. Our collaboration with our national parliaments, and I must commend you, Honorable Speaker, for the good work you do in creating that link, in offering leadership. I have seen you time and again, linking very closely with the speakers of the national parliaments. We encourage you to continue to do so. Take leadership in the Parliamentary Institute of East Africa. These are some of the things that, with our strategic plan now focused in that direction, makes even the effort that you do now more strategic. I need not say much, Honorable Speaker. I feel greatly honored that our own members have developed a strategic plan that will guide the work of this House even beyond this Assembly. 2024, our term ends in 2022. So literally, whoever will come and sit here as Eala 5 will actually come and sit on a roadmap that was designed by this House. I feel honored, I feel very proud. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Aden. Honorable Francine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be brief. I thank the team who has made this Eala strategic plan. Just what I want to add is to make sure that our strategic plan is supported by strong tools for administration and the financial tools to support the implementation. Because when we are an oversight organ, we have to make good examples for administration and the finance, and we have to be able to make it as an example, and a model in what we are doing in our strategic plan. So I urge the team, which is in charge of implementation, of monitoring of implementation, to be able to follow and to help the whole team of the Eala to make such an example on what we are doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Francine. Looks like we may have to allow this to spill over until tomorrow. I don't mind that. Okay. Honorable Dr. Ann, then Honorable Oda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I want to also commend the team that developed this strategic plan for a work well done. And I also commend them for anchoring this strategic plan on the 4 pillars of our treaty. Right, Honorable Speaker, my only concern is that while the group have recognized the 4 pillars, there are very important provisions in the treaty that speaks, if you go to Article 5, 3, E, it talks about mainstreaming of gender in all its endeavors and the enhancement of the role of women in cultural, social, political, economic, and technological development. There are more provisions in this treaty that talks about women and empowering, and in fact, the treaty refers to promotion of women rights and empowering as very central to the integration process. While I look at this strategic plan, it's very silent with regards to mainstreaming of women. And I think all that should start from here. As Assembly, we must make it a point, and it must appear very clearly as we do our job that we are actually mainstreaming gender, and we are also focused on empowering of women. I rest my case. Thank you very much. That is something that I have observed, and I think the committee should take it into consideration.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Ann. Honorable Oda.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I'll also be brief because we got an opportunity to discuss on this document. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker, because I remember very well when we were discussing at the commission level on this activity, you really emphasized on us doing it on ourselves. And I remember very well that we had a hot debate, and with the experience of how this strategic plan mainly being done, as my brother, Honorable Aden, said, by the consultants. And this has been a habit in many institutions. So I really wanted to appreciate your leadership, and that it gave, though I was not part of this team, but I know very well that they now appreciate that they are owning. We are also owning after receiving this document, and I think this is the way to go. Because when we sit down, read the documents, do consultation with the stakeholders, get some information or capacity or explanation by our own staff on how these strategic plans are made, then it builds our own capacity. But more importantly, it makes us own our own process. So I wanted to really say thank you so much for this guidance, and I think this is something we are going to take forward in the near future. If we are missing a certain capacity, it is better that we get this capacity, but do our business on our own. I want to really appreciate the team led by our own Mzee on the work done. Allow me, Right Honorable Speaker, to appreciate our own chair of this committee. This, our senior Dr. Obulu is really a good man. He's a leader, has really shown a lot of efforts, regardless of some challenges, health challenges. But I know very well that he has worked tirelessly in the commission, but of course with the team he worked with. And today we are happy to see that we have this important tool within our community. Quickly, I want to say that this is one of the tools, very important tool for the any institution to do also resource mobilization. I'm happy that my chair is here now as we are moving towards making sure that chair of the general purpose, because we agreed that now we are going to start knocking on the doors, but of course using the right channels as we have been guided by the Speaker and the Secretary General. But we know that now we have a tool to use, because when you have a strategic plan with all which is result-oriented, because these days you don't just come up with a list of activities. No, you need to have a strategic plan which is result-oriented, and then it becomes easier to sell out and get support from the different partners within our community, even outside the community, so that we can implement our plans. Lastly, I would say that we also need to be accountable. We cannot be accountable if we don't have a tool to be used by others. We have the civil society to account for. And the civil society, as far as you know, represents the community. We have to be accountable to the community. So through that, through the strategic plan, well elaborated, then we'll be able to come up with the reports. And I'm happy that last time when we were closing the East African Business Council, our own Right Honorable Speaker mentioned the intention of this assembly to have a gala every year. And I'm sure that with this tool, we'll be now evaluating where we are, presenting to our partners and our stakeholders, and of course strategizing together on the way forward for the next financial year. I'm also happy to note that the team included a very important component of international conventions and treaties. They mentioned, they included the AU Agenda 2063 and UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. I think these are very important because as far as we all know, our member states ratifies these international conventions and treaties, and at the regional level, we are supposed to make sure that we do the monitoring, we do the oversight to make sure that we abide to these international conventions and treaties. So to sum up, Right Honorable Speaker, I'm excited today as we are ending this plenary. We are ending it in a very, very important note that the Assembly now is going to be working under a proper framework where we are following our own strategic plan, which of course, as it has been mentioned by my sister, Ambassador Fatuma, that through the methodology, they consulted our own regional strategic plan and the other tools available in our community. So this is in line, and we are happy that now we are working professionally. I submit, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Order, yes, we can have a little bit more of a discussion about this tomorrow. I think for now, let's go and stretch our muscles because we have how many days to go? Yes, yes. I know some of you may be feeling a little bit of pains. That's what happens when you train after you have not been training for a very long time. But the way to deal with that is to go back. If you want to rest and recover, then you never recover from that shock. So the more pain you feel, the more the need to go and do a little bit more stretching. And those people who are helping us are professionals. They know how to take you at your pace. So please know that you are in good hands. On that note, I suspend the House until tomorrow at 9:30. I adjourn the House until tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you.
Don't care. Supposed to be here.